Noah Meir. I am the CEO of the Charney Forum for New Diplomacy. With us today is Dr. José Vericat, Carter Center Country Representative. Can you please share with us your assessment of the geopolitical situation of the Middle East?
I think that the Middle East has been on a downward trend for the last 2 decades, really. Certainly in terms of military activity, in terms of the conflicts that have sprouted everywhere. And I think that that's a trend that's still continuing in many respects. It might have peaked already, but it's certainly, there are major conflicts still pending. It's a cause for debate. It seems that there's still a sort of major rearrangement of the Middle East as a whole. That's sort of talking broadly about the Middle East in general.
While we're very much still in the midst of the coronavirus, as you look at it from now, and we still don't have perspective, of course, but what possible ramifications do you think it can have on the Middle East?
It's difficult to say really the extent of the repercussions. In terms of the economy, it's going to be devastating worldwide. It's already bringing in a major recession. And the Middle East, broadly speaking, is an area where people depend on very small businesses. They are prime victims for this sort of type of economic stagnation. Certainly, the economic dimension is going to be huge. It's already an area of great stability. The death toll, the damage it's going to actually do to people's health. Everybody's a little bit guessing as to the full extent of that dimension. Cities like Cairo, which are extremely densely populated. So the effect could be quite devastating. Obviously, there are potential positive outcomes of it. And we've already seen some efforts at taking advantage of this global crisis.
Do you foresee any potential implications it will have or opportunities it will have on the relationships between Israelis and Palestinians, Israelis and the Arab countries around them? Do you think that the coronavirus might have an effect on the relations?
I think, in the particular Palestine-Israel context, we've gone through a period where different parties, the officials of the Palestinian Authority, the Israeli government, UN agencies have extolled the level of collaboration and cooperation between the parties. There have been some positive signs of an increased cooperation, collaboration, and there's no doubt it's hugely in the mutual interest of everybody that there is this collaboration. I think that with the passing of time, it's the last sort of week, 2 weeks has been slightly dampened those hopes. And we've seen that collaboration is really mostly anecdotal and is mostly cosmetic. Precisely the opposite trend of what you would want in these sort of circumstances, which is sort of global solidarity, as opposed to survival of the fittest, survival of the individual state just doing whatever it can to just ensure its the protection of its citizens, which also obviously it's understood. But that's the tension really where this conflict is with Corona, is whether the international solidarity, support, the brotherhood of men and women, sisterhood will overcome the individual struggle for survival of individual countries and whatever, regardless of the cost.
Zooming out of the Middle East for a second, what potential implications do you think coronavirus can have on diplomacy and globalization?
We're seeing them develop as we speak. I think that there is a lot more of this that's going to take place. Everybody knows it's going to have repercussions on the sort of, how it will affect the behavior of societies and individuals in societies. To what extent will people avoid interaction, physical interaction from now on? Obviously, states will take a lot of precautions in terms of building out their emergency teams and their capacities to deal with another similar health crisis. But to what extent people will avoid meeting in person or even shaking hands, etc. I think it definitely highlights the fact that we live in a more global world and we live in a more virtually connected world. Individual citizens become, to participate in citizen journalists and all of that has taken a bigger and bigger role. We're going to have bigger capacity for citizen contestation of state authority and state decisions. There's a certain element of empowerment of the citizen in this situation. For now, obviously, there's again a tension between centralized authority and using it as an opportunity, the state to impose itself, to take even more context, draconian measures to control the public and control the population. It's made a more opinionated constituency. Certainly in my contacts, I see that there's a lot of questioning of how the authorities have been behaving, have been responding. And so, you will have, after this, obviously, huge debate about whether the authorities acted correctly or not. And that's a healthy debate, of course. The more you can empower the individual citizen.
It's very interesting because the Charney Forum for Diplomacy, that's exactly the trend that on its foundation, the forum was established, that there is a lot more, just like you have citizen journalists, you have a lot more citizen diplomats in the sense that they're playing an active role in civic society in Israel, for example, is so strong. And we're hoping that, the coronavirus will not diminish it, but on the contrary, and more people play an active role, more there's room for, to improve their knowledge and improve their know-how. And that's exactly what we're hoping and aiming to do. So Winston Churchill famously said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And indeed, every crisis serves as also an opportunity. Can you just share with us some of your thoughts at this stage of some potential opportunities, either locally, globally?
People like ourselves, the Caritas Center, that have been working here as back channel mediators, have been trying to advance negotiations and advance support for peace and for the resolution of the conflict. And we're obviously firmly wedded to the two-state solution, a fair and just resolution to the conflict. I think we're watching very closely, or as closely as we can, and whether the conflict is, any parties taking advantage of the conflict. And I don't think we've seen a massive, outrageous, or very prominent moves in that respect of creating new facts on the ground and to advance political agendas. What sort of major trends for this crisis? Obviously, we're seeing also various parties, states across the world that are trying to entrench their rule, sort of the authoritarian regimes that are trying to strengthen their control and their iron grip over the population. The coronavirus is clearly something ultimately that properly addressed from the top down in many respects. So it needs those sort of governmental forces. It sort of naturally empowers the government, and it naturally empowers state authority, because states are the ones that are really sort of have the tools to deal with it. And so inevitably the crisis is going to strengthen them, I think.
What you think about the Charney Forum for Diplomacy has as an advantage of a hybrid of academia and practitioners and practical areas of expertise?
The Charney Forum for New Diplomacy is very timely. And I think that thinking through ways that diplomacy can adapt and can improve in the era that we live in, the coronavirus has certainly highlighted this dimension of the virtual world and the importance to empower individuals to play a role in diplomacy. The sort of revolution of new media has affected journalism in particular. Governments and other institutions have definitely used new media and the new virtual world in many ways. So it's become already quite sophisticated. There's so much more scope for development and for analyzing the real impact. I saw there was a kind of a real sort of sense of empowerment, individual empowerment by media, of the citizen and its capacity to contest and to put checks and balances on the government. We saw it in the last US elections with the intervention, states, organizations intervening through the internet in terms of trying to influence voters. It's an area that's being increasingly contested.